Hey writers, in your writer's notebook you're going to find an organizer today that's going to help you identify your character's struggles and motivations. So what they want, what does my character want, is the struggle. And it doesn't have to be a gift or a tangible item. It could be something like not being afraid of the dark, or going to a place like Disney World, like any of those ideas. But I used a present to represent that, so you guys know that this is what your character wants. And then you need to think of the motivation of why they want it, and then how that story ends. And today I'd like you to add a piece of dialogue, since we've been working on dialogue and you did that with Mrs. Willingham. So to reiterate, you're going to think of your character's motivation, their want, and why they want it. So the struggle is what they want, the motivation is why they want it, how that story ends, and then add some dialogue to bring life to your scene. So I learned to do this by studying published authors like Jolie Brickenlow and other authors of short stories. This is an excerpt from the book Fireflies. At the very beginning of the story, the narrator sees fireflies out the window while he's eating dinner. When we read the story, we come to know that he yearns, or really wants, to go out and catch fireflies so he can keep them as pets. But the author doesn't come right out and say that. Instead, Jolie Brickenlow shows this by putting examples of that yearning into scenes. Watch how Jolie Brickenlow tells a story, small moment story, or a scene that reveals what that narrator wants in Fireflies. So before I read this, imagine that you're sitting at your dining room table looking out the window and staring at the fireflies. Let's see how this author brings that to life in your mind. I ran from the table down to the cellar to find a jar. I knew where to look, being the stairs. The jars were dusty, and I polished one clean one on my shirt. Then I ran back up 2 steps at a time. Holes, I remember, so the flies can breathe. I poked holes in the top of the jar with Mama's scissors. The screen door banged behind me as I ran from the house. If someone said, "Don't slam it," I wasn't listening. I called to my friends in the street, "Fireflies!" But they had come before me with polished jars. So in this story, we know that the character wants to catch fireflies. Why they want to do it? That's a tricky one. Does it really tell you why he wants to catch fireflies? Sometimes good authors kind of leave you thinking about the situation in the story, and this is just one scene. But, I could kind of come up with a guess. And remember, I told you earlier when we were talking in this video, is that he wants to catch fireflies to make them pets. How does this story end? This short story ends with our narrator catching flies with mason jars. And then look at the dialogue. Here, he's not talking to anybody but himself. Holes, I remember, so the flies can breathe. Think of how you can bring your character's dialogue to life. So if it's writing about your sister Amy, Zoe, or Dalton writing about Grandpa Bud, think of what they would say in that situation. Bring your realistic fiction to life through dialogue. So some people say that fiction is like a brick wall, and the bricks that go together make the story are called the scenes. This is a scene. It shows you how much that narrator wanted to collect fireflies and how excited he was. When he races down the steps to the place where he knows the jars are, we see how he's been thinking about catching fireflies for a while. And then when he's done, he remembers to poke holes in the jar. He knows that's important, but he also knows that his mom wouldn't want him to dull her scissors, so he's super quiet about it. And then he knows he has to get outside quickly because he wants to make sure that he is the first one who gets to catch those fireflies, and there's still fireflies left. However, he's very polite and a good listener, because he does yell out to his friends saying that there's fireflies. So he doesn't hog them all for himself. When we are developing characters, we need to think not only about what our character wants and what gets in the way for them, that barrier, that problem, we also need to think about how we can create those little scenes. Paint the picture. Tell me what it looked like outside. Tell me what the character would say through dialogue. Tell me what the character was wearing. Paint that picture in my head. So today you are going to go into your writer's notebook and you are going to create another story. You're going to do that using this organizer. I want to see what you can do. So think first of all of a character in your head, what that character wants, why they want it, how's that story have a solution, and then what would they say in this situation. I want to remind you that it should be realistic fiction, so this should be based off a small moment in your life or something that could happen. Good luck, writers.